Let's kick off our opening drive, brought to you by Chevy. Another list to add to Colston Loveland's collection of off-season top 10 rankings. This one comes from the NFLPA. This released their 2026 Rising Stars list. Each year, the NFLPA releases two lists, one for rookies and one for veterans, both intended to rank which players they believe are poised to have breakout seasons, gain fan support, and ultimately rank among the top sellers of all officially licensed player merchandise. So here you see on your screen a look at the top 10 veterans specifically, and there he is, number 2, tight end Colston Loveland. We've talked a lot about the leap he could make on the field, guys. The on-field production he could have in 2026 seems to have no ceiling. But how much do you see his star power growing in 2026? We got a little sneak preview of it last year with his rookie skit. Remember that?
Yeah, he has a little personality, some flair. He's coming out of his shell. I think you'll see more of that in year 2. He's in the right market for that to happen. That wasn't what stood out to me on that list. I think it's good for Colston Loveland. It's consistent with what we expect from him on the field. But the other names, Tyler Shough on that list, number 1 from New Orleans, very interesting. Also, 3 tight ends, 3 running backs. It is the position right now in the NFL, it seems.
Yeah, Tyler Shough finished the year on such a high note. I think at quarterback, especially New Orleans, you think of Drew Brees. I had some time out there. There's a big football fandom out there. That's a big base. It's a fun place to play. If he can do what people think he can do, the way he finished the season, he'll be there. And I think for Colston, it makes sense the way he finished the season. We've talked about this ad nauseum. 5 catches a game, 66 yards per game over his last 12. And if you look at that trajectory, I think that's special, and he will bloom into a star, especially being with Caleb Williams in Chicago. I think it's safe to say this guy's going to really, really go up here.
I hear you guys, and I think a lot of this list does have to do with what he does on the field. But when you think about some of the other tight ends who have star power, to me, I think of a guy like a Rob Gronkowski. I think of a Travis Kelce. I think of guys that have this loud personality who they're in every movie and they want to be on every commercial. Like Colston Loveland, to me, having been in the locker room last year a lot, he's a very no-nonsense, all football, sort of keeps to himself. He's the ultimate professional. Like, to me, the star power is going to all come from what he does on the field.
Perhaps, but I think humility is cool as well. And I think the guys that you mentioned have this larger-than-life persona. He doesn't necessarily have that yet. It's not him, but he's authentic, and he doesn't try to be someone he's not. If he were trying to be like Gronk or Travis Kelce or George Kittle.
Right.
Who, is he still here? Is he in the marquee booth? But I think if you're just being yourself, people respect that.
Gronk was always just being Gronk. Travis Kelce, I've met him several times, is just a great guy. The things that they are, they've both won multiple Super Bowls, I think 4 apiece, and they both are probably 1 and 2 in the greatest tight ends of all time. So they're not just big personalities, boisterous guys. They're actually the best at the position in the history of the game. That's what it's going to take. If Colston can do that, which I'm not saying he is, I've said a lot of things about Colston, then yes, he will be one of those guys that star power is one of the top guys in Chicago.
He's got to just keep singing, "You should let me love you." Let's go to our second down of this opening drive as we check in on Luther Burden and the hype train that has rallied around him.
I think he is going to be the breakout wide receiver of the 2026 NFL season. When you watch him last year, and he really wasn't like a true point of the offense until midway point to later. But this is on 60 targets. He had 47 receptions. He almost led the team, even in a minimal amount of offensive targets and snaps. And again, not coming on until late in the season. He does it in yards after catch. He does it in contested catches. He runs great routes. He does it intermediate. He's down the field. I think he's going to turn into a true number 1.
That was by way of ESPN's Andrew Hawkins on NFL Live. There's a lot of excitement about Luther Burden, but Caleb Williams also has star tight end Colston Loveland to throw to, and then it's also safe to say that Rome Odunze still views himself as the number 1 wide receiver option. 3 mouths to feed, but 1 ball to spread around. By the end of the season, guys, how will we rank this depth chart of the Bears' top 3 receivers?
Well, you know how I feel. I think consistency is good, so if they're going to stay with it. Luther Burden is going to be the leading receiver on the Bears and the number 1 target. He'll emerge because I think he'll be healthiest, and I think in terms of the wide receiver we're talking about now. Colston Loveland might be right there, right behind him. That's going to be a potent 1-2 punch. But, Clay, I worry about Rome Odunze because of the foot, that I think he's already talked about not being 100%, and he'll have to pass the eye test in training camp before you put too much faith in him. So I do understand the hype surrounding Luther Burden III based on how he finished last season and also based on what Ben Johnson said about him.
Hey, if Ben Johnson's buying stock in him, so am I. Okay, and guess what, guys? We're talking about stock. I brought some numbers. You guys know I love some numbers. Listen to this. Among rookie receivers since week 10, he was first in receptions, he was first in yards, he was first in yak, he was first in 23 first downs among all receivers. He was third in yards per route run. Every route he ran, third in the NFL. And then this is interesting. Second catch percentage, second best catch percentage among any wide receiver in the NFL with over 50 yards. That's really good consistency. And I think the more targets he gets, he's going to keep getting better. He came in as a guy that we thought was going to be a slot receiver. You see him in OTAs and minicamp, Ruthie. He's playing everywhere. He's inside. He's outside. He's moving around. They're not going to be able to find where he's at. So I think he does have a big year, and I'll put him and Colston 1A, 1B, okay, and then Rome right behind him. I think Rome can have a big year. He started off strong, got hurt, and then he didn't quite live up to what he was doing.
If we're listening carefully to what Ben Johnson is saying, like he's buying stock in Luther Burden, we also have to listen to what he said when he says, it keeps me up at night when I think about all the mouths I have to feed. So from a play caller perspective, Clay, or even just from a quarterback's perspective, how mindful will Ben have to be when it comes to spreading the love between all the guys?
He doesn't have to be mindful at all. Caleb doesn't. Ben's got to be the guy that notices who they're going against, the matchups. He's got to put them in the progression where they're supposed to be. If you want to get Rome the ball and you like the matchup he has on the slot receiver, move Rome to the slot. If you want to put Luther outside, you think Luther has a matchup, move him outside. Same thing with Colston. These guys are versatile. Ben should be able to put them in a position.
That's exactly right.
To be in the progression.
It's the play caller's job and responsibility to do that. To the quarterback, to Caleb Williams, the favorite receiver is the open one, especially in this offense.
Read the progression.
Yeah, there's a reason Ben Johnson stays late at the facility every night. It's because he's creating a lot of options for Caleb Williams to have when he goes up against each and every opponent. Let's go to our third down, sticking with this wide receiver conversation. Who is the best wide receiver, not just in football, but in the NFC North?
I think he's the best wide receiver in the league. I think he's the only guy who catches with it, runs with it, blocks, does everything. He can do it all, and it's a lot of fun to work with him and to play with him. And the way he works in practice, he makes me want to get him the ball. He makes me want to reward him for all his hard work, and you know, it makes everyone around him work harder. And he's just such a great teammate, great player, great person, and I love playing with him.
Cornerback who gives you the best battles?
I'm not really 100% sure. I honestly,
it may not be anybody.
I honestly don't. You know, if I had somebody that really played me true man-to-man all game, then I can answer that question. But I haven't had a true one-on-one game for a long time now.
It's crazy to think about that two of the best receivers in football are in the Bears division, right? These are two guys that the Bears have to plan for twice a year, 4 times total, by the way, okay? So I ask you this, who is the best wide receiver in the NFC North right now? Is it Amon-Ra St. Brown or is it Justin Jefferson?
If I had to take just one, I would take Justin Jefferson. I think he's the best and the hardest and most explosive, hardest to cover, and he's right. You can't think of a guy who has shut him down. When he's healthy, he's numero uno. Now, the toughest guy, the toughest receiver in the NFC North, maybe in all of football, is Amon-Ra St. Brown because of the way that he will mix it up. He can do that in the slot. He can do that down the field. He can take a hit. You can't go wrong with either guy, but forced to pick just one, I would go Justin Jefferson.
Who's had the better years? I would say Amon-Ra St. Brown. Who's the better wide receiver? I'd go Jefferson. I think Amon-Ra is in a much more stable system, offense, better quarterback. Let's look at the last 2 years, guys. St. Brown, 232 catches. Jefferson, 187. They both played 34 games. Yards, Amon-Ra St. Brown, 266, 2,664 versus 2,500. So he has more yards, he has more catches, he has 10 more touchdowns in the last 2 years, but because the system is so much better for him now because he's playing with Obviously, Jared Goff versus J.J. McCarthy. Last year was kind of a giveaway year for J.J. I think he's the better receiver, but who's having the better years? You can't deny it. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown.
He is, but that is a product of the system.
Of the system.
And I think that he came into the league not as a high draft pick. A lot of people were wrong about him, but he was almost created because of the play caller, the scheme, and then his own ability. So I think Justin Jefferson is not a guy that needed a scheme to flourish. He's a guy that's explosive in any offense.
I love that we're talking about Justin Jefferson and just sort of what makes him so different. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown has the versatility, but there are so many different positions on that defense that can cover him. There aren't very many positions that can cover a guy like Justin Jefferson. That's
right.
Somebody that changes your whole game plan, and you have to really make sure that you're taking care of him. Let's go to our fourth down of this opening drive. Did you miss talking about the stadium conversation? Well, we did. That's why we're going to give you a little bit of an update. 𝗏𝗏 of The Athletic conducted his annual Bears fan survey, and one of the more interesting results involved the Bears' search for a new stadium. Because of the 3,465 fans that participated and voted, 71.6% of them still believe that the Bears will be building their new stadium in Arlington Heights. That is a significant favorite when you look at the three options there. David, are you surprised to see that many fans still think that the Bears are going to Arlington Heights over Hampton?
Not really. I think the Athletics audience is a discerning lot, and I think they understand what's going on here. They also own a calendar, and when you look at your calendar, you see that it's middle of summer, late July, and we were told that late spring, early summer, the Bears would have some type of resolution here, according to Kevin Warren. Hammond is still there. They could go there yesterday, tomorrow, and they have not. They could have gone there earlier this month. They're waiting with open arms. They're waiting with all sorts of things. But I don't think that there's an expectation. A lot of cynicism is building the longer this goes on, and I think this poll reflects that.
I think Bears fans feel confident that the stadium is going to be built in Arlington Heights, and I think the state of Illinois is also quite confident, because if they weren't confident, they would call a special session and get something done. I think they understand that there's not a ton of urgency for the Bears to go to Hammond.
Yeah, the next dates, David, November 17th to 19th and December 1st through 3rd for the Illinois General Assembly to meet. Do you see that as the next time they talk about this?
They're still working behind the scenes. They're trying to get legislation passed. They're trying to come to agree on the details. If they can do that behind the scenes, then they will call a special session. But they're not going to do one without the other. You don't want to get ahead of yourself.
Okay, real quickly, Bears make a decision before, during, or after training camp?
During.
After.
After.